The wind was sharp over the endless ocean. Storm clouds rolled like waves in the sky, and lightning flickered in the distance. Lyra gripped the reins tightly, her knuckles white, as her mother, Seraphine, struggled to keep steady in the air. The albino dragon was enormous, her wings spanning more than the length of two ships, but today, even such strength seemed fragile. She was sick, and the millions of barnacles covering her scales made her body heavy and stiff. Every flap of her wings was a struggle. Lyra's heart ached to see Seraphine like this. Normally, her mother would glide through the clouds with grace, her scales gleaming like polished ivory. But now, her skin was dull, and the barnacles protruded like jagged stones, clinging stubbornly to her body. Each barnacle pulsed faintly, giving off an eerie glow. Lyra did not know why these creatures had attached themselves to her mother, but she knew the dragon's life depended on her finding help, fast. "Hold on, Mother," Lyra whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the roar of the wind. "We're almost there, just a little further." She scanned the horizon for the floating city of humans where she had heard rumors of someone who might help. The humans were curious beings. Many dragons did not trust them, and some claimed they could never truly understand dragon physiology. But Lyra had no choice. Seraphine was dying, and she had heard stories of a human mechanic, a man named Humyn, who could fix what seemed impossible. The journey had been long. They had flown over mountains that jutted out like jagged teeth from the ocean, and across skies where storms brewed without warning. Every mile had been harder than the last. Seraphine's breaths came in shallow huffs, and her wings trembled. Lyra's stomach twisted with fear. She had never faced this kind of helplessness before. As the floating city came into view, Lyra felt a small spark of hope. The city was built on massive platforms that floated on the water, connected by bridges and suspended walkways. Lights flickered across the buildings, reflecting off the waves below. It was a place of humans, machines, and strange inventions. She had heard that Amon's workshop floated near the center of the city, a metal structure filled with gears, steam pipes, and odd contraptions that hummed and whirred. If anyone could help, it would be him. Landing a dragon in a human city was not easy. The humans had built their structures small compared to a dragon's size, and Lyra had to carefully maneuver Seraphine between towers, avoiding cables, poles, and bridges. Onlookers gasped and scrambled to get out of the way, their faces pale with awe and fear. Few had ever seen a dragon up close, let alone one as rare as an albino. Finally, Lyra guided her mother to the edge of the largest platform. She called out, her voice strong despite the shaking in her heart. "Humyn, please, help my mother." A figure emerged from the workshop doors. A human with messy brown hair, goggles perched on his forehead, and grease-stained hands. He looked small next to Seraphine, but his eyes held intelligence and curiosity. He squinted at the dragon, then at Lyra, taking in the millions of barnacles clinging to her mother. "This is real," Humyn said slowly, stepping closer. "I thought the stories were exaggerations." Lyra didn't have time for words. "She's sick. The barnacles. They're not just clinging, they're hurting her. Please, you have to help." Amon's eyes narrowed as he studied Seraphine. "I've never seen barnacles like these," he muttered. "They're alive, aren't they?" Lyra nodded. "I don't know what they are exactly, but they appeared suddenly. My mother was strong before. Now she can barely fly. Please, Humyn, you have to help." The human mechanic scratched his head. "Dragons are complicated. Even the best healers struggle with a sick dragon. But," he paused, glancing at Lyra's determined expression, "I don't see anyone else trying. I'll do what I can." Relief washed over Lyra. She climbed carefully onto a nearby beam, while Seraphine lowered herself onto the platform, trying not to crush anything with her massive claws. Humyn approached, tools in hand, and began examining the dragon. As he worked, Lyra watched closely. Seraphine's breathing was uneven, her skin pale under the barnacles. The parasite-like creatures seemed to pulse in response to Amon's touch, almost as if they knew something was happening. Lyra shivered. She had never seen the barnacles behave this way before. "What are they?" she asked. "I don't know yet," Eamon admitted. "But they're not normal. Ordinary barnacles die when removed. These fight back, and they're connected to her somehow." Lyra's stomach dropped. "You mean you might not be able to help?" Eamon shook his head. "No, I can help. It will take time, patience, and a bit of courage." He looked directly at Lyra. "Do you have that courage?" Lyra nodded. "I have to. She's my mother." For hours, Eamon examined Seraphine, measuring the barnacles, checking the dragon's heartbeat, and testing strange machines he had built. Lyra assisted, holding tools and speaking to her mother in soft, encouraging words. Seraphine lifted her head slightly, responding to her daughter's voice. She was too weak to speak, but the trust between dragon and rider was clear. Outside, the storm raged on. Rain fell in sheets, wind howled, and the platform shook beneath the dragon's weight. But inside the workshop, there was a sense of calm, a bubble of focus and determination. Eamon adjusted a strange device, and the barnacles glowed faintly, responding to the energy. Lyra leaned closer. "Do you feel that, Mother?" she whispered. Seraphine's amber eyes blinked slowly, almost as if she understood. The barnacles seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. Eamon frowned. "Interesting. They're alive, but not aggressive. More like symbiotic. But something is wrong. They're harming her, yet they're part of her now. We'll need to be careful." Lyra's mind raced. How had this happened? Her mother had never been sick before. The barnacles, the storms, everything seemed connected. But she pushed her fear aside. There was no time for doubt. "Can you remove them?" she asked eagerly. Eamon shook his head slowly. "Not easily. If we remove them too quickly, they could kill her. We have to do it gradually. I'll build a device to draw them out without harming her." Lyra nodded, trying to steady her shaking hands. She knew her mother's life depended on this human mechanic, strange though he was. She had heard stories of humans failing at the impossible, but this one, she felt hope. The night fell, and the storm continued, but inside the workshop, light glowed warmly. The barnacles pulsed gently, and Seraphine rested her head on the platform, exhausted but alive. Lyra stayed by her side, speaking softly, brushing her daughter's mane, and watching Eamon work. Hours passed. Eamon tested new tools, adjusting settings, measuring the dragon's response. He worked tirelessly, his eyes focused, his hands steady despite the danger. Lyra marveled at his skill. Humans were small and fragile compared to dragons, yet their minds could solve problems others could not. She realized why the legends spoke of humans' ingenuity. At last, Eamon leaned back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We have a plan," he said. "It won't be easy, and it won't be fast. But I believe we can help her. I just need you to trust me." Lyra's eyes shone with tears. "I trust you. I trust you with everything." Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating Seraphine's enormous form. The barnacles glowed faintly, almost in response to the storm. It was as if the world itself was watching, waiting to see if a human and a dragon rider could face the impossible together. For the first time since the journey began, Lyra allowed herself to hope. Her mother was alive, and together with Eamon, they might save her. She reached out to Seraphine, holding her mother's massive head gently. "We'll get through this," she whispered. "I promise." And for the first time in days, Seraphine's eyes shone with a small spark of life. The storm raged on, but inside the workshop, light and hope fought against the darkness. The journey to save Seraphine had begun. The workshop hummed with energy as Lyra watched Eamon move from one strange contraption to another. Seraphine lay on the massive platform, her body heaving with shallow breaths. The barnacles covering her scales glowed faintly, pulsating in rhythm with her heartbeat, as if they were alive in their own right. Lyra could see the pain in her mother's eyes, but she also saw a glimmer of trust, the trust that she, Lyra, and this human mechanic could somehow make things better. Eamon adjusted a set of dials on a device that looked like a combination of a metal claw and a glowing crystal. Sparks danced along its edges as it hummed. "These barnacles," he muttered, studying a readout. "They're unlike anything I've ever seen. Ordinary barnacles cling to surfaces and feed passively. These, they're semi-sentient. They respond to her body's energy. They're bonded, and they resist separation." Lyra's stomach tightened. "Does that mean you can't remove them?" Eamon shook his head slowly. "We can, but not in the usual way. If we try to rip them off, we risk killing her. We have to find a way to work with them, not against them. It's a delicate balance." Lyra knelt beside her mother's massive head, brushing her pale mane gently. "Mother," she whispered softly, "we'll get through this. I promise." Seraphine's eyes flickered open for a moment, and Lyra felt her mother's warmth brush against her hand. Even in sickness, she felt the strength of her dragon blood. Eamon stepped back and studied his machines. "I'll need to create a device that can communicate with the barnacles, something that resonates with their energy without harming your mother. It won't be simple. These creatures, they're smart. They feel, they react, and they defend themselves. It's almost like they're alive in ways we can't fully understand." Lyra frowned. "But why would they hurt her? Why cling to her if they're smart?" "That's the mystery," Eamon replied, eyes narrowing. "It's almost as if they're drawn to her, like she has something they need, or they have something she needs. But they've grown too strong. They're draining her instead of helping. We have to reverse that." For hours, Eamon worked. Lyra assisted wherever she could, holding small tools, measuring energy readings, and speaking softly to her mother. The storm outside raged on, but inside the workshop there was focus and determination. Lyra noticed that when Eamon adjusted the energy fields of his devices, the barnacles pulsed in response. It was like watching an organism communicate with technology. "Do you see that?" Lyra asked, pointing to a cluster of barnacles near Seraphine's shoulder. The faint glow shifted as the energy field passed over them. "They're reacting." Eamon nodded. "Exactly. They're intelligent enough to respond. If we can synchronize our device with their energy patterns, we might be able to convince them to leave voluntarily, or at least stop harming her." Lyra's hope rose. "So it's possible?" Eamon smiled faintly. "Nothing impossible is permanent. We just need patience, timing, and precision." Night fell, and the storm showed no sign of ending. Rain splattered against the workshop windows, and thunder shook the platforms beneath. Seraphine groaned softly, her wings twitching as though she wanted to stretch them, but lacked the strength. Lyra stayed at her side, holding her massive claw in her hands. The barnacles glowed faintly under her touch, and she felt their strange warmth, like cold fire running beneath the scales. Finally, after hours of trial and error, Eamon adjusted a final dial on his device. A low hum filled the workshop, and a gentle blue light spread across Seraphine's scales. The barnacles responded immediately, pulsing faster, almost like they were communicating in a rhythm only they could understand. Lyra's heart raced. "Is it working?" she asked, barely daring to breathe. Eamon didn't answer right away. He observed carefully, eyes sharp and focused. "Slowly," he said finally. "It's working, but they're resisting. We need to be patient. Too much force, and they'll retract violently." The barnacles' glow shifted, forming patterns that resembled tiny constellations across Seraphine's scales. Lyra watched in awe. She had never seen anything like it. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "Yes," Eamon said, adjusting another control. "But beauty doesn't mean harmless." Hours passed. Lyra and Eamon worked together, alternating between adjusting machines and speaking softly to Seraphine. Slowly, the dragon's breathing became steadier, and her eyes flickered open more often. Lyra felt relief surge through her, but she also knew the fight wasn't over. At one point, a sudden jolt of energy shot through the barnacles. The platform shook violently, and Lyra had to hold on to Seraphine to prevent her from falling. Sparks flew from Eamon's device, and the dragon groaned in pain. "It's okay, Mother. It's okay," Lyra shouted, her voice firm. "Stay with me." Eamon quickly recalibrated the device, muttering to himself, "They're stronger than I expected. Their bond is deeper. If we force them out, they could... she could..." His voice trailed off, but Lyra understood. The risk was enormous. For hours more, they worked. Lyra marveled at Eamon's focus. Humans were small and fragile compared to dragons, yet his mind worked in ways that could solve problems others thought impossible. He could understand energy patterns, predict reactions, and adjust his machines with precision. It was human ingenuity at its finest, one of the few things in the universe capable of facing the impossible. By morning, the storm had passed. The sun rose over the ocean, painting the sky in gold and orange. Seraphine's breathing had improved. The barnacles still clung to her, but they were calmer, their pulsing gentler, almost as if they were cooperating. Lyra climbed onto Seraphine's back, brushing her mother's mane. "You're doing so well, Mother. See? Humans can be helpful." Eamon laughed softly. "I'm glad you think so," he said, eyes twinkling. "But this is just the beginning. We've made progress, but the barnacles aren't fully gone. They're stubborn, and they're alive in ways I don't fully understand yet." Lyra nodded. "Then we keep going. We don't give up." Eamon adjusted the final setting on his device. A gentle hum spread across the workshop, and the barnacles seemed to respond to the rhythm. Lyra noticed something strange. The clusters of barnacles weren't identical. Some glowed brighter, some dimmer. It was almost as if each barnacle had its own personality. "They're thinking," Lyra said quietly. Eamon frowned. "Not thinking like us, perhaps. But they're responding. That's more than I expected." As the day went on, Lyra learned more about her mother's barnacles. They were connected not only to her scales, but also to her energy, her life force. Removing them completely would be dangerous unless they found a way to communicate. Eamon's machines were the key, but they required delicate adjustments and careful timing. Lyra watched in amazement as the human mechanic worked. Small gears clicked, energy pulses flowed through crystal conduits, and the barnacles reacted instantly. Every adjustment required intuition, precision, and patience. Humans were fragile, yes, but their minds could reach places even dragons could not. Lyra realized that this human wasn't just fixing her mother's body. He was bridging the gap between species, using ingenuity and empathy in ways she had never imagined. By evening, Seraphine moved slightly. She raised her head and stretched her wings tentatively. The barnacles shifted but did not resist violently. Lyra's heart soared. "Mother!" she exclaimed. "You're moving. You're getting stronger." Eamon smiled, a mixture of pride and relief on his face. "Slowly, yes, but we're not done. We need to understand them better. The barnacles aren't just parasites. They're part of her now. They're reacting to her energy. If we can synchronize properly, we might not need to remove them entirely. We might heal her differently." Lyra's eyes widened. "You mean they could help her?" Eamon nodded. "Possibly. But it's risky. We have to study them, understand their patterns, and adjust carefully. One wrong move, and she could suffer more than she already has." Lyra reached out to her mother, feeling the warmth of the barnacles under her fingers. "Then we'll be careful. We'll do it together." For the first time since their journey began, Lyra felt a flicker of hope that they might succeed. Seraphine was alive, her spirit strong despite her sickness. And with the human mechanic's ingenuity, they might just face the impossible and win. As night fell once more, the workshop glowed with soft blue light. The barnacles pulsed gently, synchronized with Seraphine's heartbeat. Lyra sat beside her mother, holding her claw, and whispered, "We'll save you, Mother. I promise." Outside, the storm clouds had passed. The stars reflected in the calm ocean, twinkling like distant lanterns. In the quiet, Lyra realized something profound. Humans were small and fragile, but their courage, intelligence, and determination could shine brighter than the strongest dragon. And tonight, that light was keeping her mother alive. The sun rose slowly over the calm ocean, casting golden light across the floating city. The storm had passed, leaving behind a quiet sense of peace. But inside Eamon's workshop, the air was tense. The barnacles covering Seraphine were no longer merely stubborn. They were reacting in ways neither Lyra nor Eamon had anticipated. Their glow pulsed irregularly, forming strange patterns, as if they were trying to communicate. Lyra knelt beside her mother's massive head. "Mother, can you hear me?" she whispered. Seraphine's amber eyes blinked slowly, focusing on her daughter. She was weaker than before but still present, still alive. Lyra felt a surge of determination. They had come this far, and she would not let her mother die. Eamon stood over his machines, adjusting dials and flipping switches. His hands moved quickly, but his eyes were thoughtful. "These barnacles," he muttered, "they're almost like living circuits. They respond to energy, but they also anticipate it. I've never seen anything like this. They're more intelligent than I expected." Lyra leaned closer. "Do you mean they're thinking?" "Not like humans," Eamon said carefully. "But they have awareness. They react to patterns, to intentions. If we're not careful, we could trigger a defensive response. Or worse, we could harm your mother." Lyra swallowed hard. "Then we have to be careful," Eamon nodded. "Exactly. We need to synchronize with them, not fight them. If we can match their energy patterns with Seraphine's own, we might turn their presence from harmful to helpful." Lyra watched him work, fascinated. Humans were small and fragile compared to dragons, yet their minds could achieve what sheer strength could not. Eamon's machines pulsed with energy, emitting a low hum that vibrated across the workshop. The barnacles responded immediately, their glow brightening and dimming in rhythm with the device. "Look at that," Lyra whispered, awe in her voice. "They're listening." Eamon adjusted a lever, and a beam of soft blue light ran across Seraphine's scales. The barnacles pulsed faster, but this time there was no violent reaction. Instead, it felt as if they were responding willingly. "This is good," Eamon said, finally allowing a small smile. "It's delicate, but we're making progress. If we continue carefully, we might be able to guide the barnacles to cooperate fully." Lyra nodded, her fingers brushing the edge of her mother's jaw. "We can do this, Mother. You're strong. And we have humans who can think in ways we can't." The hours passed, and the workshop became a dance of energy and light. Eamon adjusted his machines, Lyra monitored Seraphine's responses, and the barnacles pulsed rhythmically, their glow forming patterns across the dragon's scales. It was as if they were learning, reacting, and adapting with every pulse. Suddenly, a jolt of energy shot through the barnacles. The platform shook, and Seraphine groaned. Lyra grabbed her mother's claw, steadying her. "Hold on, it's okay, Mother. Stay with me." Eamon quickly recalibrated the device. "They're testing us," he said. "These barnacles aren't just passive. They're aware, and they're figuring out if we can be trusted." Lyra's heart pounded. "Then we have to show them we can be trusted." For the next few hours, they worked in silence, focusing on coordination. Lyra spoke softly to her mother, encouraging her to breathe deeply, to release tension. Eamon adjusted the energy pulses, matching them carefully to Seraphine's heartbeat. Slowly, the barnacles responded, their glow steadying and their resistance easing. By late afternoon, Seraphine lifted her head slightly. Her wings twitched as though she wanted to stretch them, and the barnacles moved with her motions instead of resisting. Lyra gasped in relief. "Mother! You're moving! You're getting stronger!" Eamon adjusted a final setting. The energy beam spread across Seraphine's scales, and the barnacles pulsed in perfect synchronization. Lyra could see a change. The barnacles were no longer harming her mother. Instead, their energy seemed to flow into her, strengthening her muscles, soothing her pain. It's working," Eamon said, his voice filled with awe. "We've turned the barnacles into helpers. They're using their energy to heal her instead of weaken her." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "You did it, Humyn. You really did it." Eamon shook his head. "No, Lyra. We did it together. She trusted you, and you trusted me. The barnacles responded to that trust." As the evening fell, Seraphine pushed herself up onto her massive legs. The barnacles, now glowing softly, seemed almost protective, moving in rhythm with her movements. She flexed her wings, and for the first time in days, she lifted them fully. Lyra climbed onto her mother's back, feeling the strength returning beneath her. "See, Mother? Humans can do amazing things." Seraphine lowered her head, nuzzling Lyra gently. Her amber eyes held gratitude and recognition. Lyra smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. For all the hardships, the long journey, and the uncertainty, they had succeeded in taking the first steps toward healing. Eamon observed silently. He had worked on many strange machines, repaired impossible devices, and solved problems others had abandoned. But nothing in his life had been as challenging or as rewarding as working with this dragon and her rider. The intelligence of the barnacles, the connection between dragon and human, and the delicate balance of energy, it was a level of complexity that pushed his mind to the edge. Yet, despite the risk, he felt exhilarated. Lyra spent the next few hours walking alongside Seraphine, guiding her through gentle stretches. The barnacles moved with her motions, seemingly learning how to assist her instead of weigh her down. Each pulse of light seemed to echo her dragon's heartbeat, a sign of cooperation forming between mother and parasite. "Do you think they're sentient?" Lyra asked. Eamon paused, adjusting a dial. "They're intelligent, in their own way. They react to patterns, respond to trust, and can adapt to changing conditions. That's more than most creatures can do." Lyra watched the barnacles closely. Then maybe they're not enemies at all. Maybe they just needed someone to understand them. Eamon smiled faintly. "Exactly. That's what humans can do, understand where others can't. We may be small, fragile, and temporary, but our minds can solve problems strength alone cannot." As night fell, the floating city glimmered beneath the stars. Seraphine rested on the platform, her breathing even and calm. The barnacles glowed faintly, synchronized perfectly with her energy. Lyra leaned against her mother, exhausted but elated. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "We really are." Eamon looked at her with admiration. "Humans have a way of surprising even dragons," he said. "We can face the impossible, adapt, and make connections that others might never imagine. Today you saw that firsthand." Lyra smiled. "I know, and I'll never forget it." The workshop fell silent, save for the gentle hum of Eamon's machines and the soft pulse of the barnacles. Outside, the stars reflected on the calm ocean, painting a perfect mirror of the sky. Lyra knew this was only the beginning. There were more challenges ahead, more mysteries to uncover about the barnacles, and more strength to restore in her mother. But for now, they had made progress. Seraphine was stronger. The barnacles were no longer a threat, and humans had shown, in the quiet brilliance of invention and empathy, that they could face the impossible and succeed. Lyra rested her head against her mother's neck, feeling the warmth and life returning beneath her. "Tomorrow, we'll continue," she whispered. "We'll get you fully healthy, Mother, and we'll do it together, with humans helping dragons and dragons trusting humans." Eamon looked on, silently proud. It was moments like these that reminded him why he had chosen this path. Humans were fragile, yes, but they could create, invent, and inspire hope in ways that changed the world, or in this case, saved a dragon. The night passed peacefully. Seraphine slept lightly, the barnacles gently pulsing along with her heartbeat. Lyra stayed by her side, watching over her mother, thinking of the journey that lay ahead. They had faced the impossible and had begun to turn it into reality. And in that quiet, glowing workshop, Lyra realized something profound. Humans were not just small creatures in a vast universe. Their ingenuity, courage, and ability to understand and connect could shine brighter than any storm, and that light could save lives, even the greatest of dragons. The workshop glowed softly in the early morning light. Seraphine lay on the platform, her enormous body stretched out, the barnacles covering her scales now pulsing gently in harmony with her heartbeat. Lyra sat beside her mother, brushing her pale mane, and whispering softly. The bond between them had never been stronger. But even as Seraphine seemed to recover, a quiet tension lingered in the air. The barnacles were still present, and Eamon's face was thoughtful, his eyes scanning the glowing creatures. "They're different from anything I've ever seen," Eamon said quietly. "I've studied them, tested them, and guided them, but I still don't understand everything. They're not just parasites. They have awareness, and now it seems intention." Lyra looked closely at the barnacles. "Intention? What do you mean?" Eamon adjusted a dial on his device. "They're choosing their actions. They're responding not just to energy, but to trust, attention, and perhaps even emotion. They're not harming your mother because they want to. They're cooperating because they recognize her. They're forming a bond, a connection." Lyra's heart skipped a beat. "So, they aren't enemies?" Eamon shook his head slowly. "No. If we force them out, we could hurt her. But if we work with them, if we respect them, they can help." Lyra leaned closer to Seraphine, feeling the warmth of the barnacles under her hands. The creatures seemed to recognize her touch, shifting slightly, glowing brighter in response. It was almost as if they were communicating in a language of light and energy that only dragons and perhaps humans could understand. "Mother," Lyra whispered, "they're trying to help you. Can you feel it?" Seraphine's amber eyes focused on Lyra. She gave a slow, low rumble, a sound that resonated with trust and relief. The barnacles pulsed rhythmically along her scales, and Lyra felt a subtle warmth spreading through her mother's body. She was stronger than before. Eamon observed the patterns carefully. "If we synchronize completely," he said, "we can allow the barnacles to integrate with her energy. We don't remove them. We guide them. This could heal her fully, perhaps even enhance her strength. But it will require perfect timing, trust, and focus from both of you." Lyra nodded. "We can do that. Mother trusts me, and I trust you, Eamon. We'll do it together." The human mechanic adjusted his machines. A soft hum filled the workshop, and beams of energy spread across Seraphine's body. The barnacles pulsed faster, responding immediately. Lyra could see the patterns forming across her mother's scales, glowing like a constellation of stars. Each barnacle seemed unique, yet together they created a rhythm that matched Seraphine's heartbeat. Lyra climbed onto her mother's back carefully, holding onto her mane. "Mother, follow my lead. Breathe with me. Feel the energy. We can do this." Seraphine lifted her head, her massive wings stretching slightly. The barnacles shifted in unison, almost as if testing the connection. Lyra reached down, placing her hands over the largest clusters, guiding their energy with her intention. Eamon monitored the devices, adjusting the energy pulses to match their efforts. Slowly, the barnacles began to change. Their glow softened and spread evenly across Seraphine's scales. The harsh, spiky texture of some of the barnacles smoothed, and they no longer seemed like a burden. Instead, they seemed alive with purpose, flowing along her body in a pattern that enhanced her strength rather than sapping it. "It's working," Lyra whispered, awe in her voice. "They're cooperating. They're helping her." Eamon nodded. "Yes, but we need to push carefully. One misstep, and we could disrupt the bond." For hours, Lyra and Eamon worked in perfect synchronization. Lyra guided her mother's movements, helping her stretch and flex. Eamon adjusted the devices to channel the barnacle's energy safely. The workshop glowed with soft light, the hum of the machines harmonizing with Seraphine's breathing and the pulsating barnacles. As the day wore on, Seraphine lifted herself fully onto her legs. The barnacles moved in rhythm with her body, their energy flowing through her in a gentle, healing wave. Lyra felt the strength returning beneath her hands. Her mother's wings stretched, and she flexed them experimentally. Then came the moment of revelation. The largest barnacle, located on Seraphine's shoulder, pulsed brighter than the rest. A subtle vibration ran through the dragon's body, and Lyra felt a strange sensation, as if the barnacles were not merely following instructions, but communicating. Eamon's eyes widened. "Lyra, I think they're conscious. They're not just responding to energy. They understand. They're aware of your mother, aware of you, aware of us. They've been trying to bond, not harm. The sickness was a result of imbalance, not malice. Lyra's eyes filled with wonder. They wanted to connect all this time? Eamon nodded. Exactly. And now we have the chance to let them do it properly, to integrate fully. But it will take trust and courage. Are you ready? Lyra took a deep breath. I'm ready. Mother is ready. Eamon activated the final sequence on his device. Soft beams of blue light spread across Seraphine's body, and the barnacles pulsed in perfect harmony with her heartbeat. Lyra guided her hands over the clusters, focusing on the intention of connection, not control. The dragon responded immediately, her wings extending fully, her body strong and fluid for the first time in days. The barnacles shimmered, then began to transform. Their jagged edges smoothed, their glow intensified, and they spread evenly across Seraphine's scales, forming a luminous pattern that resembled intricate armor of light. Lyra could feel the energy flowing from them into her mother, strengthening her muscles, soothing her pain, and revitalizing her spirit. Seraphine lifted her head high, her amber eyes shining with clarity and strength. She let out a long, powerful roar that echoed across the floating city. Lyra hugged her neck, tears streaming down her cheeks. We did it, Mother. You're whole again. Eamon smiled, watching the transformation with awe. Not just whole, he said quietly. Enhanced. She's stronger than before. And the barnacles, they're part of her now, not a burden. A partnership. Lyra stepped back, observing her mother. Seraphine's massive wings beat the air, lifting her slightly off the platform. The barnacles pulsed along with her energy, shimmering like living constellations. The dragon hovered gracefully, a magnificent fusion of natural strength and alien intelligence. Look at her, Lyra whispered. She's beautiful. Yes, Eamon agreed. And it's proof of what humans can achieve. We're small, fragile, temporary, but our minds, our ingenuity, and our willingness to understand can change impossible situations into reality. Today, we saved a life that everyone else would have given up on. Lyra nodded, feeling pride in both her human friend and herself. And we did it together, humans and dragons, working as one. Seraphine dipped her head, nuzzling Lyra gently, then looked at Eamon. The barnacles pulsed brightly, almost like a greeting or a sign of gratitude. Lyra smiled. Even they know. We all helped. The workshop fell silent, filled only with the soft hum of Eamon's machines and the rhythmic glow of the barnacles. Outside, the stars reflected on the calm ocean, painting a perfect mirror of the sky. The storm was long gone, and a quiet sense of peace settled over the floating city. Lyra climbed onto Seraphine's back. Are you ready? She asked softly. Seraphine lifted her wings fully, flexing them with strength and grace. She let out a roar that shook the platform and filled the skies with sound. Lyra laughed, gripping her mane tightly. Then let's go home. With a powerful leap, Seraphine lifted off the platform, gliding smoothly into the sky. The barnacles shimmered in her scales, the blue light spreading across her body like a living constellation. Lyra felt the wind rush past, the ocean below sparkling in the sunlight. For the first time in days, she felt unbounded joy. Eamon watched from the platform, his heart full. Humans were small and fragile, yes, but their intelligence, creativity, and courage could achieve wonders. Today, they had healed a dragon, forged trust between species, and proved that even the impossible could be overcome with empathy, determination, and ingenuity. Lyra guided Seraphine over the floating city one last time. The citizens below stared in awe at the magnificent albino dragon, her barnacle light shimmering like a ribbon of stars. Whispers of amazement spread through the platforms. Humans and dragons, working together, had achieved something no one thought possible. As Seraphine soared higher, Lyra leaned against her mother, feeling the strength and warmth flowing through her. We did it, Mother, she whispered. We really did it. Seraphine gave a low rumble in response, and the barnacles pulsed softly, a living testament to trust, connection, and understanding. Humans and dragons, once so different, had found common ground. And in that union, they had created something truly extraordinary. The sky stretched endlessly before them, full of possibility. And for Lyra, Seraphine, and Aemon, the adventure was far from over. But the impossible had been conquered, and humanity had proven its brilliance once again.